What would happen if you took a piece of metal, like say a bolt, and you wrapped a wire around it a whole bunch of times, and then hooked the wire up to a battery so electricity ran through it? What would it do to the bolt? And the answer is it would turn it into a magnet. In fact, a very special magnet, an electromagnet. Did you know there are cranes that have a big hook that hangs down from a steel cable, and they'll go over and pick up a car and lift it over into a crushing bin. And when it gets over the crushing bin, it drops the car. And all that ball is a big, big, big electromagnet winding. They turn on the electricity, and it can pick up a car. They turn off the electricity, and it drops. So I took a little trip into Area 51 today to do some experiments to show you some of the things you can do with an electromagnet. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
All right, let's roll it. Okay, so I have a nut and a bolt here, and I've taken some green wire and I've wrapped it around here. So I have a bolt with green wire, and I've hooked it up to the power supply so that I can turn it on and run current through it. When I run the current through, this should become an electromagnet. Let's see if I have a magnet already. I'll try and pick up some of these coins, and you can see I can't, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on some voltage here. Now let's try it. Now you can see I can pick up the coins, and when I turn the voltage off, lose them. Let's try it again. So I pick them up, and when I turn off the voltage, so what do we learn? When you make a coil of wire around a piece of metal and run power through it, it becomes an electromagnet, and the electromagnet can pick things up. Next, I want to show you a coil. Now this is a coil with a lot of lines of wire around it, and the wire ends up at these 2 points. So if I hook up this cable, I can run power through this coil. Now as I run that power, this becomes an electromagnet, but since it doesn't have a core, it won't be a very strong electromagnet, but there's a lot of things that we can do with it. For example, here's a little screwdriver. If I take the screwdriver, let me turn some power up on this coil. There we go. So we've got some voltage up here now. Okay, I'm going to turn the switch off. If I put the screwdriver so it's just barely going into the coil, I turn on the power, and as the coil becomes a magnet, it pulls the metal screwdriver in. Let's try it one more time. Aha. So you can see that it tries to pull the metal into the center of the coil when you do that. We use that all the time to make things called solenoids. This is a little solenoid that could turn a switch on or off, or that could power a valve or something like that. Has a piece of metal that's going through a coil, and when you power the coil, it tries to pull this piece of metal in. And then, if you look carefully here, you can see there's a little spring. And so when the power's off, the spring pulls it back out. So let's go ahead and hook this up to our power supply, one side, and for this we'll need to get a lower voltage. This only needs, let's try it right around 5 volts. There we go. And then the other side, we're going to go ahead and hook up to the other side of the coil. But when we do this, I want you to watch this little plunger. Can you see how it snaps in? And I'm going to try and do that a few times. So no power, power on. So I have a way of actuating something. I could actuate a switch to go on and off. I could actuate a valve to open or close, because when I run power through the coil, it pulls the core into the center, and that is called a solenoid. And we use those all over in our modern world. Now I want to go back to this coil for a minute, and this time as I hook it up, I want to give it a piece of metal. Let's turn it up here so we got a good strong signal again. Oh, look at that, that's nice. Now we're going to take this little screwdriver, put it down inside the coil, and it's actually in the magnetic field. It's aligning the molecules to see if we can turn this into a magnet. And lo and behold, that's how you can make a magnet, is by putting it in a magnetic field or stroking it with a strong magnet to get all the things to line up. So that makes it a magnet. All right, so the next thing I want to do is power these little coils in this motor. Here's two permanent magnets. We have coils, and as they turn, the power is switched off from one coil to the next, so that they're always being pulled towards the magnet. Let's go ahead and put some power on it and see what happens. And as you can see, now here's another real interesting use. This is a bell. If I put power on this coil, it will pull this plunger down, so it'll go like it's going to strike the bell. Let's see, we've got about the right voltage. So I'll go ahead and touch it on here, and you can see it rings one time. Wouldn't it be interesting if I can make it ring a whole bunch of times? And in the design of this bell, they did something interesting. They made a little switch here so that when it goes in, right there, it breaks the current. So if I run the electricity through this switch by wiring it like so, then every time it pulls in, it will turn off the power. Then it'll spring back. Let's see what happens when we do that. So can you see? It actually, so you can do a lot of clever stuff with coils and switches. And a lot of the things we enjoy today are done using electromagnetism. All right, so what are we going to do with it? I have a real life story about electromagnets and how they saved my bacon.